Commander Jiho stood frozen in the Seoul Command Center, watching the holographic display flicker with alien symbols that seemed to burn themselves into his retinas. The blue glow cast eerie shadows across his weathered face as the voice continued its cold declaration. This wasn't how humanity had imagined first contact would happen. No peaceful exchange of knowledge, no diplomatic handshakes across the cosmos. Just a simple message that had appeared on every screen, every monitor, every device capable of receiving a signal across the entire planet. "Admiral Soyan, what's our assessment?" Jiho asked, his voice steady, despite the chaos erupting around them. Admiral Soyan Kim stood beside him, her fingers dancing across the tactical interface. Her dark eyes reflected years of military training, but even she couldn't hide the concern creeping into her expression. 12 alien fleets, sir, each one carrying enough firepower to glass a continent. They call themselves the hegemony of Zephyrian worlds. She paused, highlighting different sections of the display. Their ships are positioned at strategic points around our solar system. Mars' orbit, Jupiter's moons, even near our own satellites. The alien voice crackled through the speakers again, its mechanical tone devoid of emotion. Primitive species. Of the third planet, you have 72 of your rotations to cease all expansion beyond your solar boundary. Compliance will result in supervised development. Resistance will result in extinction. Jiho felt his blood turn to ice. Supervised development. We're talking about humanity like lab rats, like pets that needed to be trained. The insult cut deeper than any physical wound. Captain Minho burst through the reinforced doors, his face flushed from running through the underground corridors. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he struggled to catch his breath. "Sir, we've got confirmation from NASA, ESA, and Roscosmos. The alien ships are real. They're massive, each one the size of Manhattan, maybe bigger. Our deep space telescopes are picking up energy signatures we've never seen before." "What about their weapons?" Jiho demanded. "Unknown technology, sir. The energy readings are off the charts. One of their smaller vessels could probably level New York City in minutes." Minho's voice cracked slightly. "The president is calling an emergency session with all world leaders." Everyone's panicking. Jiho's jaw tightened as he processed the information. Throughout the command center, dozens of operators worked frantically at their stations, their faces illuminated by the glow of monitors displaying tactical data, communication feeds, and satellite imagery. The room buzzed with nervous energy, as humanity's military leaders tried to comprehend the magnitude of what they were facing. "What about our defensive capabilities?" Jiho asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Against conventional forces? We could hold our own," Soyan replied, her fingers still moving across the holographic interface. "But their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Our best weapons barely register on their energy shields. Nuclear missiles, railguns, plasma, cannons, everything we have is like throwing stones at a tank." "Ah!" The room fell silent as the weight of the situation settled over them like a heavy blanket. Earth's first contact with alien life wasn't a moment of wonder or discovery. It was an ultimatum of surrender or death. The dreams of generations of scientists, philosophers, and dreamers had been shattered in a single moment. Sir Minho spoke. Quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. The other world leaders are already talking about compliance. The Chinese premier, the American president, the European Union Council, they all think we have no choice. They're saying resistance would be suicide. Jiho looked around the room at the faces of his officers. These weren't just soldiers following orders. They were the sons and daughters of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain on a hostile planet. A species that had survived ice ages that should have killed them. Plagues. That should have wiped them out, and 2 world wars that nearly destroyed their civilization. They were the descendants of humans who had looked up at the stars and decided to reach for them, no matter the cost. "They want us to stop reaching for the stars?" he said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of every human dream that had ever looked beyond Earth's atmosphere. "They want us to stay in our cage like good little pets, never growing, never exploring, never becoming more than what we are right now." The alien transmission played again, the mechanical voice repeating its cold ultimatum. But this time, Jiho heard something different in it. Not just arrogance, but fear. These aliens hadn't come to negotiate or to welcome humanity into some galactic community. They had come to cage a species they saw as a threat. "What are your orders, sir?" Soyan asked, her hand hovering over the command console. A cold smile spread across Jiho's face as he thought about the preparations humanity had been making for decades. The hidden installations, the secret research projects, the contingency plans that most people dismissed as paranoid fantasies. Every military leader worth their rank had wondered what humanity would do when they encountered hostile alien life. Now, they were about to find out. "Send a message to all our hidden installations," he said, his voice carrying a deadly calm that made every officer in the room straighten their shoulders. "Tell them to activate Protocol Omega. It's time to show these aliens what happens when you threaten Earth." As the officers scrambled to carry out his orders, their fingers flying across keyboards and speaking urgently into communication devices. Jiho stared out at the Seoul skyline through the reinforced windows. The city looked peaceful in the morning. Light, with millions of people going about their daily lives, unaware that their entire future hung in the balance. But beneath the surface, in tunnels and bunkers that had been carved from solid rock, humanity's real strength was awakening. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that had barely crawled out of their own atmosphere. They had no idea they'd just poked the most dangerous predator in the galaxy, a species that had turned warfare into an art form and had been preparing for this moment since the first. Human looked up at the stars and wondered what was waiting for them in the darkness. 3 weeks later, President Hunu stood at the podium in the United Nations building, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the edges of the wooden surface. The weight of the entire world rested on his shoulders as cameras from every major news network focused on his face. Behind him, the flags of every nation hung like silent witnesses to humanity's darkest hour. After careful consideration, the nations of Earth have decided to comply with the hegemony's demands, he said, each word feeling like a betrayal of everything humanity had worked toward. All space exploration programs will be terminated immediately. Our satellites will be deactivated. Our space stations will be abandoned. We surrender our dreams of the stars. The words tasted like ash in his mouth, but they had to be said. The alien monitoring stations in orbit recorded every syllable, their advanced sensors analyzing his heartbeat, his breathing patterns, searching for any sign of deception. What they found was exactly what they expected: a broken leader of a defeated species, reading the terms of surrender to his people in orbit. The alien monitoring stations recorded the shutdown of space facilities across the globe. The International Space Station went dark, its lights flickering out one by one. Satellites stopped transmitting. Deep space telescopes powered down. Humans appeared to be surrendering exactly as predicted, following the same pattern that hegemony had seen from dozens of other species across the galaxy. But beneath the surface, a different story was unfolding. In the depths of the Korean DMZ, General Sun Woo watched as massive blast doors sealed shut behind the last convoy of supplies. The underground facility stretched 4 kilometers in every direction, its corridors carved from solid rock and reinforced with the strongest materials humanity had ever created. This wasn't just a bunker, it was an entire city hidden beneath the Earth, connected to similar installations across the globe through a network of tunnels that had taken decades to complete. "Status report," he commanded, his voice echoing through the command center where hundreds of technicians worked at their stations. Lieutenant Nari consulted her tablet, her fingers swiping through pages of data. "All primary sites are sealed and operational, sir. The alien scans are reading exactly what we want them to: read abandoned facilities and a demoralized population. Their sensors are detecting massive power shutdowns across the globe, and the real preparations. Manufacturing plants are at full capacity, sir. Every major city now has underground weapon systems. The civilian population has been quietly distributed to hardened shelters over the past 3 weeks." Nari's eyes gleamed with anticipation. "The aliens think we're cowering in fear. They have no idea we're preparing for the largest military operation in human history." General Sun Woo nodded with satisfaction. The deception was working perfectly, while the aliens watched from orbit, seeing only the surrender they expected. Humanity was transforming itself into something the galaxy had never seen before: an entire species mobilized for war, above ground. The hegemony scouts patrolled Earth's cities in their sleek fighters, their hull designs smooth and predatory like metallic sharks, cutting through the atmosphere. They cast long shadows over supposedly defeated humans who shuffled through their daily routines with heads bowed and shoulders slumped. The aliens saw what appeared to be a broken species going about their daily lives in quiet desperation, their spirit crushed under the weight of superior technology. They didn't see the weapons being forged in hidden factories deep beneath the earth. They didn't detect the military networks that ran through subway tunnels and sewer systems, carrying encrypted communications to every corner of the globe. They completely missed the fact that every civilian they observed had been trained in combat tactics and was carrying concealed weapons. Captain Dong-yoon, disguised as a street vendor in Tokyo, arranged his fruits and vegetables with practiced ease as an alien patrol approached his stall. The four-legged creatures stood nearly 3 meters tall, their crystalline armor glinting in the sunlight. Their translation devices picked up his mumbled words as they passed. "Please, we don't want any trouble. We just want to live in peace." What they didn't translate was the Morse code he was tapping against his cart with his fingertips. Enemy patrol. Sector 7. Weapons count. 4 plasma rifles. Personal shields active. Moving toward shopping district. The aliens continued their patrol, satisfied that they had encountered another broken human going through the motions of normal life. They had no idea that every word they spoke, every movement they made, every tactical decision they considered was being recorded and analyzed by human intelligence networks. Across the globe, similar intelligence flowed through humanity's hidden networks. In London, a street musician played sorrowful melodies, while his guitar case contained advanced communication equipment. In New York, a hot dog vendor served alien patrols with a smile, while his cart secretly scanned their weapons and armor. In Moscow, a flower seller arranged bouquets that spelled out tactical information in a code older than the aliens. Civilization. The aliens were learning nothing while humans learned everything. In the Seoul Command Center, now relocated 300 meters underground behind layers of reinforced concrete and electromagnetic shielding, Admiral Soyeon smiled as she watched the tactical display. Red dots represented alien positions across the globe, while green indicators showed human assets moving into position. "They're getting comfortable," she observed, watching as alien patrol routes became predictable. "Their patrols are becoming routine. They think we're broken, that we've accepted our fate as a conquered species." "How long until they realize their mistake?" asked Colonel Taeyeon, his uniform bearing the insignia of Earth's newly formed planetary defense force. "Soon," Soyeon replied, her smile turning predatory. "Our intelligence suggests they're planning to begin what they call the cleansing operation within the week. They want to reduce our population to a more manageable level, probably eliminate about 70% of humanity to ensure we never pose a threat. And our response?" Soyeon's eyes gleamed with the cold calculation of a predator preparing to strike. "We let them start. We let them think they've won. Then we remind them why Earth has never been conquered, why humanity has never been enslaved, and why we're the most dangerous species in the galaxy." Around the command center, officers, prepared for the largest coordinated military operation in human history. Every major city, every strategic position, every hidden installation was ready to reveal humanity's true nature. The aliens thought they were dealing with a primitive species that had surrendered without a fight. They had no idea they were about to face the wrath of a species that had been preparing for this moment since the first human looked up at the stars and decided to reach for them. The attack began at dawn. The first rays of sunlight were still painting the sky orange. When the hegemony's warships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars, their sleek hulls cutting through the clouds with deadly precision, their weapons were all ready. Charging energy readings climbing to levels that could vaporize entire city blocks in seconds, Admiral Corvin stood on the bridge of his flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. His forearms moved gracefully across the command interface as he watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. After 3 weeks of observing the broken, defeated humans below, this would be simple extermination. "Begin bombardment of population centers," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had overseen the conquest of 17 different worlds. "Make it swift, we don't want to damage the planet's resources unnecessarily. Mining operations will begin as soon as the cleansing is complete." The first plasma bolts erupted from the alien warships, streaking toward what appeared to be a defenseless soul. The energy beams were hot enough to melt steel, bright enough to blind anyone who looked directly at them. The aliens expected to see buildings vaporize in balls of superheated plasma, streets turn to glass, panicked humans fleeing in terror through the smoke and flames. Instead, the city came alive, building facades that had looked like ordinary. Concrete and steel suddenly fell away like theater curtains, revealing massive railguns that had been hidden behind false walls. The weapons were enormous, each one the size of a subway current. They swiveled with mechanical precision to track the incoming alien ships. Streets cracked open along predetermined lines, and launch platforms rose from underground silos, releasing swarms of missiles that screamed toward the alien fleet like angry hornets. The defenseless population vanished into hardened shelters, as if the earth itself was swallowing them. Automated defense systems rose from hidden positions throughout the city, laser turrets emerging from rooftops, plasma cannons unfolding from what had looked like ordinary buildings, and shield generators, creating protective barriers of crackling energy. "What is this?" Admiral Corvin demanded, his confidence evaporating as his ship's shields flared under unexpected return fire. The tactical display was lighting up with threat indicators he had never seen before. "These readings are impossible. We're using our own technology against us." In the underground command center, General Sunwoo watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. The massive screens showed the alien fleet reeling in confusion as Seoul transformed from a helpless city into a fortress bristling with weapons. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since the first alien transmission. "This is command," he spoke into his communication device, his voice carrying to every hidden installation across the globe. "Welcome to Earth. Show them what we really are." Lieutenant Nari coordinated the response from her station, her fingers dancing across multiple screens as she directed the planetary defense grid. "Metro system launchers are active across all major cities. Civilian militia units are in position. Sir, the aliens are taking heavy losses. Their formation is breaking apart." Above ground, the battle raged with fury the aliens had never experienced in their centuries of conquest. Every human they encountered fought with the desperate ferocity of a cornered animal, but with the coordination and precision of a hive mind. There was no panic, no chaos, all lead deadly efficiency. Captain Dong-Yoon's street vendor. Disguise was abandoned as he shouldered a plasma rifle stripped from a fallen alien warrior. The weapon was twice the size of anything humans normally carried, but he handled it with practiced ease. His customers, who had been buying fruit from his stall just minutes before, a tactical squad around him, their movements precise and lethal as they engaged the alien ground forces. "These aren't civilians." An alien soldier screamed into his communicator, his voice distorted by his breathing apparatus. "They're all soldiers. The entire population is." His words were cut off as Dong-Yoon's shot found its mark, the plasma bolt punching through the alien's crystalline armor like it was made of paper. In the skies above, human pilots flew fighters that shouldn't have existed. Major Yona banked her aircraft, a sleek hybrid of human engineering and reverse-engineered alien technology, as she pursued a fleeing enemy craft. The fighter responded to her thoughts as much as her controls, its weapons systems locked onto the alien vessel ahead. "Fox 2. Fox 2. She called out, her missiles streaking toward the target in trails of brilliant fire. The alien ship tried to evade, but human missiles were designed to hunt, to adapt, to never give up until they found their target. Another one down. These invaders are learning why we're the apex predators on this planet. The alien formations began to break apart as panic spread through their ranks. They realized they weren't facing a primitive species that had surrendered without a fight. We're fighting something that had been preparing for this moment for generations. Every human weapon, every tactical doctrine, every piece of technology had been designed with one purpose: To defend Earth against exactly this kind of attack, Commander. Giho emerged from the underground tunnels, his uniform torn and scorched, but his eyes blazing with determination. Around him, the defeated population of Seoul had transformed into a coordinated military force. Shopkeepers carried rocket launchers. Office workers operated advanced communication equipment. Children who should have been in school were directing supply convoys with military precision. "Sir," reported Sergeant Jiwon, his voice crackling through the communication device. "The aliens are attempting to regroup at coordinates 127.5 to 37.2. They're trying to establish a defensive perimeter near the old airport." "Negative," Jiho replied, checking his weapon and signaling his team to move out. "We don't give them time to think. Press the attack. Show them that humans don't just fight to survive. We fight to eliminate threats permanently." The battle was spreading beyond Seoul now. Across the globe, similar scenes were playing out as humanity revealed its true nature. In Tokyo, the cherry blossoms fell like snow as hidden weapons platforms rose from beneath the city's parks. In New York, the subway system transformed into a military network carrying troops and supplies to every corner of the metropolitan area. In London, the Thames itself seemed to come alive as underwater defense. Systems engaged alien ships that had tried to use the river as a landing zone. The aliens had come expecting to face a broken species. Instead, they found themselves fighting. A planet that had transformed itself into a weapon, populated by a species that had been preparing for war since the moment they first looked up at the stars and wondered what was waiting for them in the darkness. The alien retreat lasted exactly 47 minutes. As the surviving hegemony ships fled toward the outer solar system, their engines blazing with desperate energy, they discovered that humans had anticipated their withdrawal routes. What should have been a simple escape became a carefully orchestrated trap that stretched across millions of kilometers of space. Captain Minho commanded the pursuit squadron from the bridge of the Soul's Revenge, a destroyer that had been constructed in secret over the past month using captured alien technology. The ship was a testament to human ingenuities. Leak alien. Hull design merged with human weapon systems, creating something that was both familiar and terrifyingly new. The bridge hummed with activity as his crew worked at stations that combined human interfaces with alien computing power. "Target the enemy flagship," he ordered, his voice carrying the cold determination of someone who had watched alien ships bombard his home planet just hours before. These aliens want to learn about human determination. Let's give them a close-up lesson. The ship's weapons officer, Lieutenant Nari, had been transferred from ground command to lead the space combat operations. Their fingers moved across the alien control interface with practiced precision. The symbols and readouts translating themselves in real time thanks to captured alien translation systems. Plasma cannons locked on target. Firing. The energy beams lanced through space, their blue-white light cutting through the darkness like lightning frozen in time. The beams struck the alien vessel's shields with devastating force, causing ripples of energy to cascade across the protective barrier. The hegemony ships had been designed to fight conventional battles against species that followed predictable patterns, not to face enemies who learned and adapted in real time.
"Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship," reported
Communications Officer Hyman, her headset crackling with static. "Put it through," Minho commanded. Settling back in his captain's chair, Admiral Corvin's voice crackled through the speakers, his earlier confidence replaced by desperate confusion. "This is impossible. Your species was classified as pre-industrial. How do you possess our technology?" Minho's response was cold and matter-of-fact. "Because we're humans. We don't just use tools, we improve them. Every piece of equipment you left behind made us stronger. Every ship you lost gave us new blueprints. Every weapon you fired taught us how to build better ones." The truth was even more impressive than Minho's words suggested. In the weeks since the first alien scouts had arrived, human engineers had been working around the clock to reverse engineer every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on. Crashed fighters became the basis for new propulsion systems. Damaged weapons were stripped down and rebuilt with human modifications. Even the alien communication networks had been hacked and turned against their creators. "Incoming enemy fire," announced the tactical officer. "Multiple plasma torpedoes bearing 270. Evasive maneuvers," Minho ordered. The Soul's Revenge twisted through space with movements that defied its massive size. The ship's hybrid propulsion system, Melian gravitational manipulation, combined with human thruster technology, allowed it to perform maneuvers that would have been impossible for either species alone. Plasma torpedoes streaked past the ship's hull, their deadly energy dissipating harmlessly into the void. On the surface of Mars, Colonel Taeyun led a strike team through the alien supply depot they had captured 3 days earlier. The facility was a maze of crystalline corridors and chambers filled with technology that would have seemed like magic to humans just a month ago. Now it was being systematically stripped and analyzed by human engineers who worked with the focused intensity of scavengers feeding on a fallen predator. "Status report," he radioed to his team, his voice echoing through the alien structure. "We've got their navigation system, sir," reported Sergeant Jiwan, "our team working to extract data from alien computers, and their faster-than-light drive schematics. Engineering says they can have a prototype running within hours." "What about the prisoners?" "Secured in the detention area, sir. They keep asking how we learned their tactical procedures so quickly." Gi-Huan paused, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "They seem genuinely confused by our ability to adapt." Colonel Taeyun smiled grimly as he watched his team work. "Tell them we've been studying warfare since before their civilization existed. This is just another day at the office for us." In the asteroid belt, Admiral Soyin coordinated the systematic destruction of alien outposts from the bridge of her flagship. The hegemony had established staging areas throughout the solar system, expecting to use them for a prolonged occupation. Instead, they were watching them fall one by one to human assault teams that struck with surgical precision. "Ma'am," reported her tactical officer, "the aliens are trying to establish a communication link with their home systems. They're calling for reinforcements." "Jam their signals," Soyin ordered without hesitation, "and prepare the faster-than-light ships. If they want to call for help, they'll have to do it in person." The human fleet had grown from a handful of experimental vessels to a coordinated armada in just a matter of weeks. Each ship was a unique hybrid of human and alien technology, crewed by humans who had trained for space combat in simulators. That had been theoretical until the invasion began. The final battle of the solar system took place near Jupiter's moons, where the gas giant's massive gravity well created a natural arena for the confrontation. The remaining hegemony forces had consolidated their position, hoping to make a final stand before attempting escape to their home systems. General Sunwoo, now commanding the combined human fleet from his flagship, watched the enemy formation with calculated patience. The aliens had arranged themselves in a defensive pattern that would have been effective against any conventional enemy. But humans had never been conventional. "They're setting up a defensive perimeter," he observed, studying the tactical display. "They think we'll come at them head-on, the way most species fight." "What are your orders, sir?" asked Captain Dong-Yoon, now commanding his own vessel after proving his tactical skills in ground combat. "We don't attack their strength," Sunwoo replied, his strategy shaped by centuries of human military doctrine. "We attack their assumptions, begin the psychological warfare protocol." Across the human fleet, speakers began broadcasting a simple message in the aliens' own language. "You came here to exterminate us. Now you're trapped in our solar system. We are the species that conquered our own planet. What did you think would happen when you threatened our home?" The alien formation began to waver as the reality of their situation sank in. They had come to destroy a primitive species and instead found themselves facing extinction at the hands of predators who had turned their own technology against them. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "the alien fleet is breaking apart. They're attempting to scatter." "Let them run," Sunwoo ordered, his voice carrying the satisfaction of a hunter who had successfully cornered his prey, "but make sure a few escape. They have a message to deliver to the rest of the galaxy." 6 months later, the Hegemony Council convened an emergency session on their homeworld of Zephyria Prime. The massive chamber stretched 4 kilometers beneath the planet's surface, its walls carved from living crystal that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. This was where the most powerful beings in the galaxy made decisions that affected trillions of lives across hundreds of worlds. The chamber, which had once echoed with the confident voices of conquerors planning their next expansion, now buzzed with fearful whispers and nervous energy. Admiral Corvin stood before the assembled representatives, his once pristine uniform bearing the scars of his encounter with humanity. Burn marks from human plasma weapons decorated his chest plate, and his left arm hung in a crystalline healing brace. The proud warrior who had departed for Earth 6 months ago was gone, replaced by a broken shell of his former self. "Honored Council," he began, his voice carrying none of its former authority. "I must report the complete failure of the Earth pacification mission. Of the 12 battle fleets that departed for the human homeworld, only 3 ships returned. The casualties number in the hundreds of thousands." A shocked silence filled the chamber. In the hegemony's 1,000-year history of expansion, they had never lost more than a handful of ships in any single campaign. The idea that a primitive species could destroy 11 entire battle fleets was beyond comprehension. Elder Thane, the council's most senior member, leaned forward in his crystalline chair. His ancient form had witnessed the conquest of dozens of worlds, and his voice carried the weight of centuries of experience. "Explain. How does a primitive species defeat 12 battle fleets equipped with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy?" "They were never primitive," Corvin replied, his voice hollow with the memory of what he had witnessed. "We were deceived. By our own assumptions, humans allowed us to believe they were inferior while they prepared for total war. Every moment we spent observing them, they were learning about us, adapting to our technology, preparing for our attack." "Impossible," scoffed Counselor Vex, her 4 eyes blinking in rapid succession, a sign of agitation among her species. "Our intelligence clearly showed them to be a young civilization that had barely escaped their own atmosphere. They had no interstellar technology, no advanced weapons, no unified military command. Your intelligence showed exactly what they wanted you to see," interrupted a new voice from the chamber's entrance. The assembled aliens turned to see 3 figures entering the hall through the main entrance, a massive archway that had been sealed for the emergency session. They wore simple black uniforms with Earth's insignia, and their faces showed no fear despite being surrounded by hundreds of hostile alien forces. The humans walked with confident strides across the polished crystal floor, their boots echoing in the sudden silence. Commander Jiho stepped forward, flanked by Admiral Soyin and General Sunhua. "We are the diplomatic representatives of Earth. We've come to deliver a message." "How did you get here?" Elder Thane demanded, his voice cracking with disbelief. "Our homeworld is thousands of light years from your system. It should have taken your primitive vessels decades to reach us, assuming you could even develop faster-than-light travel." "We learned faster-than-light travel from your ships," Soyin replied calmly, her hands clasped behind her back in a military posture. "It took our engineers about 6 hours to improve on your designs. We've been here for 3 weeks, observing your preparations for the reinforcement fleet." The chamber erupted in panicked voices as the implications sank in. If the humans had been on Zephyria Prime for 3 weeks undetected, what else had they learned? What other preparations had they made? Preparations? Counselor Vex's voice cracked with fear. "What preparations?" "For the reinforcement fleet you've been assembling," Sunwoo added, his tone matter-of-fact. 47 warships, if our count is correct. Each one carrying triple the firepower of the original invasion force. They're currently being destroyed by our advanced squadrons in the Kepler sector." The chamber erupted in chaos as the aliens realized the scope of their miscalculation. They had not only failed to conquer Earth, they had led humanity directly to their doorstep. Communication devices throughout the chamber began chirping with urgent messages as the assembled representatives tried to contact their home fleets. "Confirmed," reported a trembling aide who had rushed into the chamber. "Long-range sensors show massive energy signatures in the Kepler sector. The reinforcement fleet they're gone. All of them." Elder Thane's ancient form seemed to shrink into his chair as the full weight of the situation became clear. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We want you to understand something," Jiho said, his voice carrying the weight of his entire species. Earth was never the helpless world you thought it was. We've been preparing for this moment since we first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Every war we've fought, every weapon we've built, every tactical doctrine we've developed, it was all preparation for the day someone would threaten our home. You made a fundamental error, Soyen continued, her dark eyes scanning the assembled. Aliens. You assumed that because we hadn't spread across the galaxy, we were weak. You didn't realize we were waiting, watching, preparing. Earth isn't just our home, it's our fortress. And we've just proven that fortress is impregnable. But more than that, Sun Wu added, his voice carrying a note of warning that made every alien in the chamber shiver. We've proven that we can. Take the fight to anyone who threatens us. Your fleets are gone, your reinforcements are destroyed. Your homeworld is defenseless. The human delegation turned to leave, but Jeho paused at the chamber's entrance. The massive archway framed his silhouette as he delivered humanity's final message. Consider this your only warning, he said, his voice echoing through the crystal chamber. Earth is now watching the galaxy. Any species that threatens us, any world that harbors our enemies, any fleet that approaches our space with hostile intent, they will learn what you've learned. And what's that? Elder Thane whispered, his voice barely audible. That humanity doesn't just fight to survive, Jeho replied. Here replied, his words carrying the promise of consequences that would echo across the galaxy. We fight to ensure that no one ever threatens us again. Spread the word, Elder. Tell every species in the galaxy what happens when they declare war on Earth. As the humans disappeared into the shadows of the chamber, the Hegemony Council sat in stunned silence. They had awakened something that had been sleeping at the edge of the galaxy, and now it was watching them all with predatory eyes. In the months that followed, word spread through the galactic community like wildfire. Earth, the small blue planet, that had once been dismissed as insignificant, had become the most feared name in the known universe. The species that had conquered their own world had set their sights on the stars, and they would not be stopped. The end.